So we're going to count down now. 10, 9, 8. I'm going to do a refresh at 5, see if anybody's come in at the last second and bid. Oh my God. I've got 2 copies of the same comic in 2 different grades. This one is currently worth about $80. This one is worth about $2,000. Now you could hold them side by side and go over them with a magnifying glass and you would see a few subtle differences, but they are almost indistinguishable. In this video, I'm going to talk about why people will pay so much more for this comic than they will for this comic. And I'm going to get into the hard data on how much more people will pay at each grade level. I've also got a real-time event going on because this book, not this actual book, but a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 57 at 9.8 is auctioning on Comic Link in just a few minutes. And we're going to watch it and see how much it goes for. Is it going to get the fair market value or is it going to get a little bit higher? Because right now, with a few minutes to end, the book is going for $2,400. And as I said, its fair market is actually $1,950. So it's already above market value and it might go higher. In Comic Link, Comic Link is very intense because there's no reset. If somebody comes in at the last second and bids on other sites like Comic Connect, the timer will reset back to 3 minutes and give all the other bidders time to think about whether or not they want to go higher. Comic Link doesn't do that. The timer just goes to 0 no matter when the bid comes in. So people generally wait until the 10 or 5 second mark and then pounce with the highest price they're willing to go to. So sometimes the number doesn't change at all and the book just sells. Sometimes it goes really high. We're going to watch that happen. But first I want to talk about these books. So this is a 7.0 copy of Amazing Spider-Man 57. As I said, its fair market value is $80. It's almost not worth putting in a case for the time and trouble it takes, the cost of this plastic, which has just gone up, the shipping back and forth. You are spending as much on all of that almost as the book is worth. You're probably going to lose money if you try and sell a 7.0 copy. I bought this recently at an auction at a really good price. Somebody else paid for the time and trouble of grading it, and I got it for a little, I think about $80 actually. This one, the CGC 9.8 copy, I did not buy this at 9.8. I did a thing that a lot of people do. It's a fun part of the hobby. I saw it up at auction at 9.4 and I managed to get it for $420, which is a good price below the fair market value even at 9.4. And there weren't any grading notes listed on the serial number at CGC. So I decided to take a chance on it. I didn't know why they dinged it down from 9.8 to 9.4. I didn't know what the defects were, but it looked really good to me. And I thought I could do what's called CPR, where you crack, press, and regrade. I thought I could crack it open, take a chance, and see if I could get something better. I have gotten unlucky many, many times doing that. I've had a lot of failures. This was my first real success where I cracked it open. I cleaned it as best as I could. I didn't really do much and got it back at 9.8. What was interesting about that is usually if you do get a bump in the grade, you're probably not going to get a bump in the page quality because that is a really objective trait. Page quality refers to the color of the pages on the inside of the book. Once it's in a case, you can't see, so you just have to trust CGC on the page quality grade they give it. But they just hold it next to, I believe, they hold it next to a reference sheet of whiteness, and they mark whether your book is white, that's the highest, off-white to white, off-white, creamed off-white, and so on. In any case, it doesn't really change even when you regrade a book. I got lucky this time. I've never seen this happen before. This was a 9.4 off-white when I bought it, and it came back as 9.8 off-white to white. So that's great. And that makes the book worth a whole lot more. As I said, I paid $420 for it. Now its fair market value is $1,950. And we're going to watch another copy of the same book auction in just a few minutes and to see if it does even better. Now, one note, the copy that is auctioning right now is 9.8 white, and this is 9.8 off white to white. That usually doesn't matter much. Page quality isn't a big factor, but when you're talking about 9.8 books and you're talking about 9.8 buyers, these are people who want perfect. So this is one notch down from perfect on page quality. That book that's auctioning may go for a little bit higher, but it's a really good reference. Now, why is this book special and this one, the market does not consider it special? I'm going to get into that. There are currently about 1,400 graded copies of this particular issue. By the way, this is not a special issue. This book is not a key in any way. It's the first time Spider-Man encountered Ka-zar. There's not a lot of demand for it. As I said, there's 1,400 copies. There would certainly be a lot more if it were worth enough to grade, but most people don't grade their copies. So it's not a particularly scarce book. What is scarce is having this book in high grade. This is a 1960s Silver Age comic. It's hard to get these at 9.8. So this 7.0 is at about the 50% mark for the population of the 1,400 graded copies. This is about in the middle. This 9.8 is in the top 2%. There are only 26 copies in existence at 9.8. So for the people out there, and there are buyers out there who are trying to collect entire runs of Amazing Spider-Man at as high a grade as they can get, maybe 9.0 and up, or maybe they're trying to get perfect 9.8s, which is actually impossible because there are currently no copies of every Spider-Man book at 9.8. In any case, the people who are going for the really high grade copies, all you need is 2 of them in this whole world. And the prices are going to get very high because they're going to be competing with each other. And there are a lot of buyers for Amazing Spider-Man books at high grade. So this 7.0 copy, this 9.8, they are, according to the price guide, this is about 20 times as valuable as this. You could buy 20 copies of this and it would cost less than this one right here. And they look almost exactly the same. Now, how did I get this book to 9.8 from 9.4? I would love to tell you that I am a comic book cleaning wizard, but honestly, I think I got lucky. I don't think the techniques I used really made a difference. I don't see a big difference in how the comic looks. I got lucky. It finally paid off. I've lost a lot of money getting books downgraded by CGC. So this is finally an opportunity to make some of the money back. I don't care about having a 9.8 book. This is the first 9.8 I've ever owned. I have a couple 9.6s, but I wouldn't buy a 9.8. I would only have one if it got graded that way. I don't need the books that I collect and that I care about to look pristine. The books I like to hang on the wall are mid-grade books that were bought off the newsstand and hopefully somebody read and enjoyed, and they lived a little bit in the world and they have some wear on them, like I do. I don't care as much about having a comic that looks like somebody bought it, bagged and boarded it, and put it in storage for 60 years. That doesn't do anything for me. Other people care, and I care because other people care, and because it's a fun game to play, to buy a book that you think you can CPR and get graded higher and then make some money off of it. I don't care that much about how much money I make. It's more that it's the more money you make, the more fun it is. And the more money you make too. That's good. In any case, I'm going to auction this one off. I don't really care about having it. And now I have this 7.0 that I just got the other day. So I don't mind parting with it as much. And I'm happy to reap the benefits of getting a good grade. I'm going to sell this at auction with Comic Link in a couple months. And that's why I'm watching the auction that's ending right now very closely, because it's going to be a good idea of what I'm going to get for this. So the other thing I want to talk about before we watch this auction end is the price jumps at these grading tiers. As I said, this is a 7.0, this is a 9.8, this is worth 20 times more than this. But oftentimes when you're dealing with books that are scarce like this, there aren't a lot of recent recorded sales you can look at. So Go Collect and GP Analysis, they do their best at telling you what the prices are at each grade jump, but they often don't make sense. It'll be flat for a couple of grades and then it'll jump a lot. And I wanted to know for myself, particularly as a bidder at auctions where you need to make quick decisions, what is the rule of thumb? How much should the price jump from 7.0 to 7.5, 7.5 to 8, and so on? So I collected a whole bunch of data and I averaged it, and I created a little reference sheet for myself that I'm going to show you to know how much more the book should be at one grade than another, because you might see a recent sale at a notch below the one you're bidding at, or you might see a sale at the grade you're bidding at, but it's from 5 or 6 years ago and it's not very useful because prices were very different back then. So this little reference sheet helps me know what I should be paying for books. The books that I used to get this reference sheet are Marvel Silver Age keys, because those are the big investment books. Those are the ones where I'm spending the most money, taking the big risks, and I want to have good data. This book is not a key book, so the price jumps are going to be a little bit different, but it does hold pretty consistently across Silver Age books. The numbers are just smaller for books like this, but the jumps are about the same. So I'm going to pull up the data right now and go through it. Before I do, I'm going to say this is inside baseball. This is not going to be useful for people who aren't actively buying comics in auctions. It may be interesting to know, but this is for people who have to make quick decisions on eBay or Comic Connect or particularly Comic Link. But if you are one of those people who buys at auctions, this is really, really useful. And I suggest taking a screenshot of these numbers once I put them up and hang on to it and pull it up when you're in those final seconds of auctions and you want to know if you're making a sane decision on paying a certain amount for a book. So I started at 2.0 because below 2.0, the numbers get very erratic. At the very top, they get erratic. At the very bottom, they get erratic. When you have a comic that has no cover or something that has something drastically wrong with it and it's got a 0.5 or a 1.8 or whatever, it's hard to get a reliable sense of what that's worth. But from 2.0 up, things stabilize a bit. And the jump from 2.0 to 2.5 is 15%. I'm going to put the dollar value, theoretical dollar value next to it. So if a book is $100 at 2.0, it'll be about $115 at 2.5. And that is true for the next couple tiers. It's usually about a 15% jump until you get to 4.0. And then it's about a 20% jump, not much different. I think that's because 4.0 is the threshold for mid-grade in some people's minds, in my mind. And you now have a mid-grade comic if you got a 4.0. So there's a little bit of a price jump there. But then it goes back down to 15%, to 4.5, 5.0, all the way up to 6.5. So you can just remember that from 2.0 to 6.5, prices go up about 15% at each grade, with one little exception at 4.0. Then when we get into 7.0, I would say we're still not in high grade. It starts getting bigger. We're at a 20% increase in price going to 7.0. 20% again at 7.5. And then when we get to 8.0, the numbers really start to climb quickly. 8.0 is what I consider to be the threshold for a high grade comic. And you will see the price jump by 40% generally as you go from 7.5 to 8.0. 8.5, it's even bigger. With the data I looked at, on average, and this is a lot of books, on average, the price will jump 50%. From 8.0 to 8.5. So if you're going to spend $1,000 on an 8.0 book, you're going to have to spend $1,500 on an 8.5. And then when we get to 9.0, entering near mint territory, I see a 60% jump in price. And that means, say we're looking at a 7.0 book, $440. When you get to 9.0, you're almost at 4 times the price because we've jumped 20%, 40%, 50%, and now 60% to get to 9.0. So you're quadrupling the price of the book. When we jump to 9.2, I think this is interesting. You'd think 9.0 would be a big jump and 9.2 would be a smaller one because we're just going up 0.2. But when you get into those little 0.2 gradations of quality up at the top, it actually gets bigger and bigger. So 9.0 to 9.2 is a 90% increase in price on average. And then 9.2 to 9.4 is a smaller one because I guess there are 4 little tiers, 9.2, 9.4, 9.6. The one from 9.2 to 9.4 isn't as exciting. We're not at the top. We're not at the bottom. So I see a 60% jump in price from 9.2 to 9.4. But then when we get to 9.6, the prices generally double. From 9.4 to 9.6. And this might not hold true across every book. A lot of the books that I was looking at had 0 copies at 9.8. So you're going to get a slightly bigger jump for those books when there is no 9.8 copy and the 9.6 becomes the highest graded copy. But even still, I would say it's pretty reliable that in your head, if you're looking at a 9.6 book and you have a recent sale at 9.4, you should double the price. And you should know that the market will pay twice as much for it. Finally, when we go to 9.8, the price jumps are extreme. They're also extremely erratic. It is hard to know, even as a rule of thumb, how much more a 9.8 is worth than a 9.6. But across all the data, and there's a huge variation. What do you call that? Is it mode, median, huge mode for these price jumps. But I found it is almost a 200% price jump, but I'm going to say it's 175%. So you don't quite triple the price of a 9.6 to get to 9.8. It's a 175% increase. So what that means is a $10,000 book at 9.6 is going to go for about $27,500 at 9.8, which is, for these Silver Age books, as high as it goes. There are mythical 9.9 copies of Silver Age books out there somewhere. I've heard about a couple of them, but the number is so small that it's not worth talking about or thinking about. 9.8 is the top of the pile for these Silver Age books that I'm looking at, and you will see about 175% jump. That's really handy information to have, and nobody has it anywhere. Go Collect doesn't tell you this. GP Analysis doesn't tell you this. I made this data set for myself, and I'm giving it to you because it's really useful to have this little reference card. Let's see where we're at on the auction. Oh, we're at 40 seconds on the auction. Okay, taking a screenshot at 40 seconds. This 9.8 copy that I've got right here is being auctioned on Comic Link right now. And as I said earlier, I bought this one for $420. It is in 9.4, upgraded it to 9.8. Another copy at 9.8 is about to auction at $2,400 in 12 seconds. So we're going to count down now. 10, 9, 8. I'm going to do a refresh at 5, see if anybody's come in at the last second and bid. Oh my God. Holy crap. Yep. They did. Oh, and somebody else. Okay. So somebody swooped in the last 5 seconds, and the bidding was at $2,400, and they bid $4,200 for this book. That was at the 5-second mark. And then I tapped update one more time, and it sold for $4,300. I'm going to put a screenshot up of the sale. I did not expect that. So that is awesome. Holy crap. So I'll be thrilled to get half that. It will still have been worth the time and trouble, but that's really cool. Getting back to what I wanted to talk about, which is those price tiers. I got this data set on Silver Age Marvel keys, and that is a little bit different than this book is. This is not a key. Nobody cares about the first time Spider-Man encountered Ka-zar. It's a pretty cool cover. It's John Romita, but it's not a particularly important or special book. So the data's not the same when it's not a key. What's different in the data set for books like this is that at the bottom, everything's really, really flat. You don't even get those 15% jumps. Because when a book is worth less than $100 at a particular grade, there aren't going to be a lot of copies of it. People aren't going to spend the money to grade their books at 5.0 if it's not even worth the cost of the plastic. So everything's pretty flat. and you see the curve rather than going like this and then getting sharper. It's like this, and then above 9.0, it's a wall. So this book is more like that. The curve is more severe at the top. So that was very exciting. I enjoyed watching that. I got this 9.8 copy, which I'm now going to sell, and the 7.0. Someone bought both of these books off the newsstand 60 years ago for 12 cents. Someone stored this one in a place that kept it looking really, really good, and this one still really good, but it's had some sun exposure. It's got a couple of creases. Maybe they actually read it, and now this one's worth a ton, and then this is nobody cares about, and that is silly, but that's the hobby. And it's the same with coin collecting, stamp collecting, baseball card collecting, Pokemon card collecting, VHS tapes, and now video games. Video games is the most absurd because if the video game is out of the cellophane wrapping, it's not worth anything. Those are a dime a dozen. Everybody's got them. But if you can find a game for whatever reason that was never opened, it's worth thousands of dollars. And people have a strong emotional attachment who grew up playing these games, but they want a perfect sealed copy. There are very few video games that never got opened, and so they're very, very scarce. That's how it works. So, high-grade books, not so high-grade books, huge variation in price. It is very silly. That's the hobby. And once you get into it, it's kind of fun. That's all I got for now. Thanks for watching.